Dr. Smith, before we talk about your findings and your testing, I'd like to talk to you about something that Mr. Dawson did prior to his test. Now, Mr. Dawson filled out a breath test operator's report and answered a few questions.
Yes, Mr. Dawson?
Excuse me, Ms. Dawson filled out a breath test operator's report in which she filled out some questions.
No, Ms. Dawson did not fill out such a report.
Well, you were there and asked Ms. Dawson a couple questions and filled out a breath test operator's report.
Yes, I filled out a report as is standard procedure, but I don't believe Ms. Dawson wrote anything as is not.
Ms. Dawson answered some questions that you wrote down in your breath test operator's report.
Yes, she did.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with Defense's Exhibit 1. Showing opposing counsel. Now, Dr. Smith, this is that breath test operator's report, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And you made this just prior to giving Ms. Dawson her test.
That is correct.
And it's the regular practice for you to make and keep these down at the station?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, we now offer Defense's Exhibit 1 into evidence.
There's no objection, Your Honor.
Now, Dr. Smith, I'd like to direct your attention to the bottom of this document where it says, "Are you hurt in any way?" Now, Ms. Dawson circled yes to that. Or you circled yes. Ms. Dawson said she was hurt.
Yes, I did.
Now, next to that blank, it says, "In what way?" And you wrote, "Banged up from the accident."
Yes, that is correct.
Now, to the best of your knowledge, Ms. Dawson wasn't medically examined, was she?
No, she was not. That's not one of the requirements before administering a UCI or breathalyzer test.
Now, Dr. Smith, I'd like to talk to you about something that you said on direct. Now, you said that it's necessary for you to observe the test subject for a few minutes prior to testing.
Yes, that is correct. Just to make sure that they don't ingest any alcohol or burp or belch.
Well, now, in the procedure that you wrote for this test, it's actually necessary that you observe the test subject for at least 15 minutes.
I don't believe I wrote this procedure. It's a standard in the state of the Midlands, but yes, we typically like to have an observation period of 15 minutes.
It's necessary for the test subject to be observed for at least 15 minutes, isn't it?
I suppose so.
But in Ms. Dawson's case, you personally only observed Ms. Dawson for 5.
Yes, I personally observed, Ms. Dawson for 5 minutes. The law department, or the police department of the state of the Midlands and the Department of Forensic Sciences often work together. So I know that Officer Foster, upon arrest, he had observed Ms. Dawson for approximately 20 minutes in the car ride, and I observed Ms. Dawson for approximately 5 more minutes.
Dr. Smith, when you're conducting these breathalyzer tests, you have a checklist that you follow.
Yes, we do.
And you use this checklist in Ms. Dawson's case?
Yes.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with Defense's Exhibit 2?
Yes.
Showing opposing counsel. Now, Dr. Smith, this is your checklist. Here, I'll take that.
Oh, no, thank you.
Now, this is the checklist that you use when you're giving Ms. Dawson her test.
Yes, that is correct.
And you usually rely on these checklists?
Yes.
And it's regular practice to make and keep these down at the station.
In fact, it is.
And you made this as you were giving Ms. Dawson her test.
Yes.
Your Honor, we now offer Defense's Exhibit 2 into evidence.
No objection.
Now, Dr. Smith, I'd like to direct your attention to the very first thing on your checklist where it says pre-test observational period.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you check that box off.
Yeah, yes, I did.
Now, under that line, it says, the operator is certain that the test subject has not ingested any substance by mouth, vomited or regurgitated liquid from the stomach to the mouth for at least 15 minutes.
Yes, that is correct.
And this is your signature here down at the bottom.
Yes, it is. Avery Smith. Dr. Avery Smith.
So you marked off that the test subject was observed for at least 15 minutes, even though you personally only observed Ms. Dawson for 5 minutes.
Yes, the arresting officer, Officer Foster, he observed Ms. Dawson for approximately 20 minutes. On top of that, I observed Ms. Dawson for approximately 5 minutes. So doing the math, 25 minutes is well above the 15-minute requirement necessary.
So as you stated, that was a 25-minute total?
You can say that, yes. The minimal requirement is 15 minutes, and I typically put in 15 minutes.
Now, Dr. Smith, I'd like to direct your attention to the box just below the pre-observational period.
Sure.
Now, where it says start pre-observation time, you wrote in 1:30.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where it says end pre-observation time, you wrote in 1:45.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's 15 minutes.
Yes, it is.
Even though you're here in court saying there was a total of 25 minutes of observation.
Well, that's the minimal requirement is 15 minutes, so I put in 15 minutes.
Now, you're aware that Ms. Dawson's being charged with murder today.
I suppose I am.
That's a very serious charge here in Midlands.
I can't imagine that it's not that serious.
So, are you telling the court that you couldn't take an extra couple seconds to write down 25 minutes rather than just the requirement?
I suppose I could, but the requirement is 15 minutes. If you want me to just say that I observed for 25 minutes.
Even though you personally only observed Ms. Dawson for 5.
Yes, I personally observed her for 5.
Now, it's your testimony here today that Officer Foster observed Ms. Dawson.
Yes, to my understanding, he arrested her at the scene of the accident and had been with her for 20 minutes after that.
Now, Dr. Smith, if you look in that same box right next to where it says observer name, could you tell me whose name is written there?
There is a name.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Now, I'd like to talk to you about why that 15-minute observation period is so important. Now, the intoxilizer machine, the machine you use to test subjects, is affected by outside factors.
It can be.
Like mouth alcohol.
Yes, as I discussed in direct.
Now, mouth alcohol can be caused by burping, belching, or acid reflux.
Yes, none of which I observed during my observational period, and as I asked Officer Foster, none of which he observed.
So you didn't observe any of those events in your 5-minute observation period?
No, I did not. Mouth alcohol dissipates fairly quickly.
And you can't be certain whether or not Ms. Dawson had any of those things happen during Officer Foster's observation period, can you?
Well, I suppose that's up to the trustworthiness of a law enforcement official.
So, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about your machine, the intoxilizer. Now, like you just said, it can give inaccurate readings sometimes.
Occasionally, yes. There have been exceptions where the intoxilizer may give slightly different readings.
So sometimes the intoxilizer is wrong.
It's possible, on rare occasions.
Your Honor, I pass witness. And Your Honor, may I ask that defense's Exhibit 1 and 2 be published to the jury?
No objection, Your Honor.
Also, would you like to?
Thank you, Dr. Smith.
There's no redirect examination, Your Honor. At this time, the prosecution ends its case in chief and requests a 5 to 10 minute recess before.
Do you want 5 or 6?
We're fine with whatever time Your Honor would prefer.
5?
Certainly.